Hi, after few of these mainline genres done, I think it's high time that we covered some of those good, but not great adventure games in the perspective of time. One game per year, many B-listers, and tons of fun. So, let's see what interesting those gamers had to play other than the AAA games. Shadowgate starts with our characters standing at the entryway to Castle Shadowgate and remembering close to nothing. So same way I start every single morning, slowly acclimating myself to the surrounding reality. What you do recall in detail though is that you've been sent there by the wizard Lakmir and his words telling you that your quest lies within the ancient keep, that you're the last one in the line of kings, so-called seed of prophecy, and that you're the only one capable of stopping the evil warlock from resurrecting the deadliest of titans, Behemoth, who lies asleep in the depths of earth and who will destroy the mankind if awakened. Now, your first instinct is to enter and take this quest head-on to save humanity, but I urge you to stop for a second and think. If you literally recall nothing and find yourself in an odd and unexpected place, then either some kind of a dangerous pill had been added to your mug of beer in the tavern last night, or some foul Jedi mind tricks mindfucker was at play. Either way, it's best to be watchful. So, even if you do follow on with the quest, beware, as the things like that don't happen for no reason. So yeah, to defeat the warlock and stop him from summoning the behemoth, you'll need to find the mystical Staff of Ages. It's a quest and a half and something you'd expect more from an RPG, but in the adventure form, it's as fun, trust me. The keep itself is filled with various monstrosities, mythical and demonic alike, and full of traps to stop any and all adventurers stupid enough to try to stand in the warlock's way. Since you're gonna be traveling through a dark and evil-filled fortress, it's crucial that you keep a source of light with you at all times. If I wasn't clear, I meant at all times. Not sometimes, not most of the time, or nearly always, at all times. So note that down. I mean, you're not Batman, you don't live in a Batcave, and are not intimate with an overwhelming and often damp and cold darkness. You're a day creature, a dayman. Hero or no hero, stay in the light, cause outside of it, death waits. Nope, it doesn't wait, it hunts for you, and all adventurers brave enough to step into it. Come to think of it, death is actually everywhere, and while the light will save you from unnecessary deaths, there's literally dozens of situations in Shadowgate that can kill you. And it's probably the game in which it's easiest to die out of all adventure titles that I've ever played or heard of. In this, it puts early Sierra games to shame. I mean, a single wrong click, a small, seemingly insignificant decision, anything can kill you. And it will. So be careful, save often, and consider all possible outcomes of all of the smallest choices that you'll make. Or don't play the game, one of the two. It may be easier to skip it if you find fun through failure mechanics annoying. I know I do. Before Horrorsoft turned into Adventuresoft and made amazing point-and-clickers, it worked on cult classic RPGs like Elvira series or Waxworks. But even earlier than that, it released a personal nightmare, our today's pick for 1989, which too is actually a horror adventure. The game story starts with your parents sending you a letter inviting you to come over to your home village of Tynam Cross for the weekend. Having nothing better to do and really craving that home-cooked food that no one does better than your mother, you agree. I mean, just imagine all those pies, roasts and soups you'll be munching on all weekend. Yum! A little while later, just as you're about to leave however, you receive another, this time more disturbing letter, claiming that you'll need to stay at Dog and the Duck Lodge as your mother had to leave to visit her sick sister. Sensing that something was amiss, and that the food may still be there in the fridge waiting to be devoured, you decide to go anyway and not change your plans. As you arrive and take a look around the village, it becomes clear that there's something odd happening, and while it's not immediately obvious what it is, I can pretty much tell you that there's devil in the town and he's working on taking it over. He already possessed many of the residents, making them part in bizarre dark sacrifice rituals, so, with both, your father the vicar and mother the master cook mysteriously gone, you're keen on getting to the heart of the thing and figuring out what happened and how to get them back. As you go about it, you realize that you'll have to dispose of some of those evil creatures, those that just can't be helped, like a vampire and a witch, and do all that within 4 days of your long weekend. Personal Nightmare came out in a time of change when most developers either moved already or were in the process of moving from text parsers to modern point-and-click solutions. So the game's devs decided to use both. And you can either use the text parser and keyboard controls for everything, or stick to the mouse and click your way through this terrifying adventure. Personal Nightmare runs in real time and features working day and night cycle with some events occurring in specific location and at specific times only. And while in true early adventure games format it features many situations in which you can die, most of these deaths happen at night and can be prevented by performing a correct action at the right time, which can get a bit annoying. So make sure to save often. If within the 4 days that you are given the devil is not repelled, possessed citizens killed and the mystery unsolved, the game ends with a failure. So make sure to bring your adventuring A-game for this one, as you will need it. Loom is a 4th LucasArts point-and-click adventure to use the revolutionary at the time Scam engine. Also, first game to omit the verb-driven interface, replacing it with a very experimental and unusual 4-note tunes. So, you have this stuff instrument and you use 4 notes to perform various actions all around the Loom's world. A different tune is played to open something, different to die something else in a particular color, and so on. Some of the notes, however, can be played in reverse order to perform reverse actions. So the color dying tune that I've mentioned can be played in reverse to bleach something. It's a very novel concept that perhaps takes a little while to get used to, but when you do, it's unlike anything else you've experienced and really fun. It's like learning a new language that does not use words but communicates with you with sounds. Anyway, it's not explicitly said where Loom takes place, but we know that it's in the year 8021, so it's somewhat possible that it may be on a future Earth. The game is set in the so-called Age of the Great Guilds, when humans once again try to establish dominion over nature. People band together to form city-states of common trade, each of them focusing on a different trade. You're Bobbin Threadbare, an excellent name for a Muppet I must add, and a young member of humble guild of weavers. Weavers that once prided themselves in being able to perfectly woven any fabric and in time transcended into weaving subtle patterns into the fabric of reality itself, effectively being able to influence it. Having such a huge power at hand, weavers decided not to play God and not to touch the fabric of existence. They did, but not unanimously, and one of them, your late foster mother, weaved one grey thread into it, unexpectedly resulting in her drawing an infant from it instead. As she's found by the weaver elders and ready to accept her fate, she leaves the child, so well, past you, with Hetchel, the old serving woman who takes it upon herself to raise you as her own. Just to be safe, elders ban you from learning the subtle ways of threading until your 17th birthday, that is, when the final decision is to be made whether you can be trusted with weaving. But secretly, in hiding, Hetchel has been teaching you the basics for years. The game starts on your 17th birthday, and all I told you up to this point is beautifully played out in an intro. From this point onward, the events are rather fast and dramatic, involving most weavers being transformed into swans and you learning of your role to play in this world. And it's to save it from so-called the third shadow, which is about to cover it. Your adventure will be a long one, we'll see you meet many different guilds and characters and save the reality in the process. But most of all, it will be hella fun, utilizing the note playing mechanic all the way through. Loom took a sidestep, nay side leap from what the other adventure games did at the time, and it all made it a very unique, one-of-a-kind experience that sadly was overlooked by many just because of that. And it's a mistake, as while it starts off slowly, like really slowly, soon enough it manages to weave you into its plot and tie you in glued to the screen to its very end. Also, Loom is one of the few games I'd suggest as best examples of how beautiful the seemingly simple EGA presentation can be if talented artists are working on it. It's a true hidden gem and one well worth playing. Curse for a Corpse is a very fun mystery point-and-click adventure that's very often overlooked and underappreciated. It seems to draw heavily from Agatha Christie's Murder on the Nile, which, truth be told, is an excellent source of quality content. It takes place in 1927 aboard a luxury liner Karaboudjan III. You assume the role of Raoul de Saint-Pierre, a French police officer who receives personal invitation from the owner, Mr. Nicolas Karaboudjan himself. While this was supposed to be a relaxing week on the sea, you know, sipping drinks at the poolside, gossiping with rich and famous, watching the shows and having the time of your life, it's not in the cards it seems. Because the owner, Mr. Nicholas, is mysteriously murdered on the second day and you, being the only one capable of doing so, have to solve the mystery and find the killer. And since everyone currently on board, late owner's family members included, seems to have some kind of a motive, the investigation will not be an easy one. So, being more of a detective story than a traditional adventure game, Curse for a Corpse will rely on you examining numerous clues and locations and on tons upon tons of interrogations. I mean, you'll be talking way more than solving any real puzzles in this one. But given the theme and subject, it's appropriate, I think, and the conversations themselves and conclusions that you'll draw from them are sort of a puzzle on their own. So, you will question passengers about their alibis, their motivations and backgrounds, you'll ask them about the other guests on board the liner and what they think of them too. You'll collect evidence and will slowly gather necessary data to complete this game. It's worth pointing out that dialogues are the king in this one. And even if you don't find something useful somewhere, so let's say an item in a drawer, it may mysteriously appear in it when a person interrogated by you mentions it being there. So, it's a much better call to exhaust all the dialogue options you'll have first and then go scouting the locales for items leading to suspects and not vice versa. Cruise for a Corpse runs on a clock, meaning that at the different parts of the day, different characters are in different locations. And yeah, I know I just used different free times in the same sentence, but this fourth is here so that I would sound even more annoying than I usually do. Here you go, mission completed. Anyway, each time you discover a useful lead, be it in terms of information or evidence, the clock advances 10 minutes, letting you know that you're on the right path. Now, it has to be said that detective work is not the most entertaining, and will have you walk back and forth more than once, coming back to same people with new questions and things to ask them about. But because of how the game is structured, you'll encounter many of those "oh shit, I know" moments in which you'll be convinced that you know who the culprit is, just to have it disproved a moment later. The ending is rather surprising and really rewarding too, so if you're at all into adventure games, don't skip this one. Well, you're watching this video, so you must care for them at least a little. Also, since I've somehow failed to mention it so far, Cruise for a Corpse's presentation is just incredible. The characters are vector-based and move super smoothly, and locales are interesting and detailed. Did I mention that you should not overlook this game? Well, don't. It's a good one. Amazon Guardians of Eden is a point-and-click adventure and one of the first titles in the genre to use SVGA graphics and digitized sounds. The game is a definition of a terribly acted-out, campy B-movie adventure and is designed to feel like it. I mean, all the dialogues, cutscenes it's filled with, and even cliffhangers at the end of each and every chapter just scream B-movie. And it's great, cause I'm a bad movie connoisseur and when you're in a mood for a B, there's no A that you'd rather watch. Or play, in this particular case. You want to see the actors struggle with their lines, you want to see them awkwardly stand there and don't know what to do with their hands, or even peek at the camera every now and then, breaking the immersion. That's what you're after. And if you're in the right mindset and want to get lost in an overacted, underperformed, crazy scenario to forget about your daily routine and troubles, there's just nothing better. Amazon Guardians of Eden is set in 1957 and tells the story of one Jason Roberts, who you play as, I must add, and whose brother was attacked during an expedition into the Amazon. So now Jason sets out on his own expedition to the land where the legends come to life, where mysteries are aplenty, and where dangers hide behind each and every corner. Or well, most trees. There's more trees in the jungle than corners after all. All of that to help his brother and find the long-lost treasure. Because why the hell not? If you're there anyway, you may as well score big, right? 2 for 1, win-win, 2 birds, or however else you wanna call it. The controls of Amazon are pretty weird, especially for the time the game released in, as they feel like a stepping stone, a missing link so to speak, between the older parser-based schemes and modern full point-and-click interfaces. So you move Jason with the keyboard only, but use mouse to interact with the environment and for puzzling. Grand majority of these puzzles are inventory-based, although in some cases a correct dialogue choice picks or quick-time actions may be necessary too. Most of these last require godlike reflexes, as if you don't act fast enough, Jason may get killed. The ever-present deaths are a gameplay mechanic that is a leftover from an older epoch of game design and not something I enjoy in particular. But it is what it is. Oh, and you'll be hunting for pixel-sized objects too, so it's that kind of a game. Keep that in mind. The presentation is overall very high quality for the time, with all the characters digitized and placed on beautifully drawn backgrounds, adding to the immersion and atmosphere of this over-the-top story. I forgot to mention that before, but in some points of the game you get to temporarily switch to a female lead too, which is rather fun, so you can't complain about lack of variety in gameplay really. Despite being able to find yourself in an irreversibly stuck position and death lurking seemingly from behind every corner just a mouse click away, Amazon Guardians of Eden is actually really fun. And if you let yourself get drawn into its plot, you'll have a hell of a time. We all love adventures, right? Finding where the dragon's hiding and then beating it into submission with a pair of chopsticks and your wits only. Saving dames in distress from mad, power-hungry dukes with a lazy eye, or seeking long-lost family members somewhere in the Caribbean. Sometimes I even dabble in an occasional detective work with all the back and forth and the walls of text worth of dialogue that it entails. But what if I wanna switch off and just chill out? Well, I seek out something I can just dive into and clickety-click my way into idle peace of mind. And today, thanks to Pavel from FM Simple Game Studio, I have a game like that to share with you all. He gracefully gifted me some Steam keys for his latest, amazingly bizarre, hand-drawn hidden objects game that just looks like the juiciest of juicy juices that you'll ever seen spilling from your screen. It's called 100 Hidden Cthulhu Fish, and it wants nothing more from you than to find all those pesky fishes and relax. They can be here, there, everywhere. Following the theme of the game, I've hidden all 8 Steam keys for it somewhere in this video, and if you wanna grab one for free, you'll have to keep them eyes open and make sure not to blink. I mean, my lawyer's telling me that I can't tell you not to, so you can, but you better not. Anyway, find the keys, try the game, and let's get back to our scheduled retro gaming. Return of the Phantom is a mystery point-and-click adventure based on the book Phantom of the Opera. It's also a feeling we get at work whenever the soulless monster of my boss's wife comes in. It gets unexpectedly cold, the shivers run our spines, and the mysterious creature haunts the premises, bringing bad news and suffering with it, and sucking the life forces out of all of us. I'm gonna tell you a short and totally unnecessary story here about her, so bear with me. She's a multimillionaire and a part owner of a medium-sized manufacturing company, and she's so wealthy she could spend the rest of her life traveling the world, staying in best hotels and living her best demonic life. And she's having some kind of a renovation done on a part of her mansion. It's painting and some other small jobs, whatever. And there's that crew of painters who work there now. She ordered a whole set of new furniture for her bedroom and living room online, and instead of ordering it with handling, she figured that she'll get the painters to bring it all into her house and set it up. And what she planned for, she did. She had them walking up and down the stairs with sofas, cupboards, wardrobes, the whole shebang for a nearly entire day. So, when their foreman heard about it, he went to her and explained that they're contracted to paint and not run around with her furniture, and that he'll have to charge her for the whole day anyway. She said that she will pay them for it, and he shouldn't charge her as they did no painting that day. She'd spoken, and it will be as she said, cause she's the queen, the demonic queen of life. The next day she did. Pay them, that is. She gave the 2 painters she's been using to carry the furniture for a whole day $5. I mean, local equivalent of $5, but $5 nonetheless. And it was $5 for both of them to share. Now, you may think that $5 may be a lot here. You don't know if it's a lot of money in my neck of the woods after all, and perhaps the painters should be happy about it. Well, I'm not sure $5 is a lot anywhere. To put things into perspective, it's like 2 loaves of fresh bread or 2 large bottles of Coke. So nothing. And she deemed appropriate to pay someone for a day worth of work with as much, or as little. Potato potato. She didn't stutter, she didn't stop for a second to consider what she was doing, she just did. In her imaginary world, it was all fine. And you know what? She felt offended when they laughed her out when she handed them that one bill to share. Oh, and to be clear, she's not demented, she's fully functional and knows very well how much things cost. Anyway, let's get back to our game and leave the millionaire demonic beings alone. You're Raoul Montant, a detective who's been asked by his friend Monsieur Brie, yes, like the cheese that's stinky but oh so delicious, who's the manager of the opera, to investigate the crime scene and solve the mystery of the Phantom. Well, to be precise, you're supposed to figure out the reason for the chandelier crashing during one of the performances right into the crowd, but apparently it's the Phantom who's to blame for it. You and I, we know that, we read the title, but in the realm of the game he's still just a mysterious and not necessarily existing suspect. He's considered to be a creature that's said to be haunting the opera for over a century, which in itself raises a series of questions, like why the opera stayed there and not moved to a new location if it's been haunted for so long, how come there hasn't been anything done about it in the last 100 years or so, and who still believes in ghosts and hauntings. Whatever, the reason's probably video game logic. Anyway, you'll naturally be searching for clues and solving puzzles, and believe it or not, but what you did not expect is that it's not only happening in the present, but also in the past too. And slowly, bit by bit, you'll piece the detective mystery in full, learning of everything that took place in the opera. The building, its canals, secret hallways and surrounding area is where most of the game takes place, and it's huge. Which is always nice, as I like my adventure games spanning vast locations, as I feel that I have a lot to discover. The fact that you get to experience it twice, in different time periods, effectively doubles the size of the game world. It also multiplies number of characters you meet and interact with, which is great too. Presentation-wise, Return of the Phantom is pretty good, with what could be called industry standard graphics for the time, but it's not gonna blow your mind. What will though is the story that may seem a bit vague after my short brief initial mention of it, but it's really interestingly told, and the more you play, the more you'll grow curious how will the adventure wrap up in the end. If any of that sounds interesting, then make sure to track down and check out The Return of the Phantom. That was supposed to be a demonic laugh, but we've ended up with these cringe grunts. I'm leaving them in anyway. Dreamweb was probably one of the most unusual and violent, but not gruesome, games for when it released. It was one of the darkest and most atmospheric adventure games played from a nearly never utilized in a genre top-down view. Dystopian Dreamweb's future was neither too torn out of our reality to feel alien, nor too close to it to feel as something we could experience in our daily lives. at least not yet. It was not quite cyberpunk, but not far off either. Technology-filled, rain-soaked noir world of Dreamweb is the best testament to developers' inspirations, which most definitely were drawn from Blade Runner and similar books/movies. And since I'm a fan of all things futuristic cyberpunk and a whole high-tech low-life philosophy of it, I was instantly enchanted. Dreamweb is a mature title full of adult overtones with bloody violence and sexual content all throughout. When it came out, saying that it was shocking and sparked a conversation or two would have been an understatement, if not for the fact that it never gained big enough following to do so. It deserved to be discussed, to be a part of the whole ESRB creation along with titles like Mortal Kombat, Snatcher or Doom, but given that it was an adventure title, released in a time when world was going crazy for the quote-unquote new, so digitized graphics, realistic for the time FPS shooters and FMV games, Dreamweb was largely ignored. All that said, the violence and sex were never used in Dreamweb as an encompassing gameplay mechanic or to fill in the gaps in the lacking story. They were not a cheap gimmick. When they were there for a reason, and despite the graphic nature, they never felt out of place or used to shock only. You're no one special in Dreamweb. A bartender named Ryan who's just your average Joe, no better or worse than anyone else, and a virtually invisible person in the crowds of futuristic metropolis. And you've been plagued by the nightmares for months. The dreams were strange, bizarre and repeating itself in a non-healthy feeling way. What's worse, they've been intensifying and you started to have more and more frequent blackouts during days, which were also filled with rather weird visions. And it got progressively worse and worse until one day, or one night really, in one of those troublesome dreams, a strange monk appeared in front of you and told you a story of the so-called 7 evil ones. 7 incredibly evil humans who will work together on destroying the Dreamweb. The monk offers you a chance of salvation, a peaceful and restful dream of normalcy. Become his deliverer, the prophesized one that will kill those 7 who are trying to bring chaos to the world. Tired, mentally exhausted and on the brink of breaking down, you agree. And as soon as you do, you wake up in a puddle of sweat next to your girlfriend and late for work. This is where the game begins. Interestingly enough, Dreamweb shares something with Elder Scrolls titles from Bethesda. Namely, nearly anything in the game can be picked up and carried in inventory, even if its usefulness is questionable or non-existent. Dreamweb was not a title for teens or kids, even if that's what most of the players of it back in the day were. It's a story for grown-ups, by grown-ups and about grown-ups. Morality and consequences of their choices and actions. Today, it would not shock as much as it did when it came out, but today it would be released on Steam and would be most likely more popular, played by YouTubers and Twitch streamers alike. Whatever you want to think about it, it's a game worth completing at least once. Flight of the Amazon Queen is a point-and-click adventure game that's full of quirky humor and funny situations. Kinda like these videos of mine are, with a difference that they're filled with stories of my boss's wife and cringe. Flight of the Amazon Queen was inspired in humor by Monkey Island games and in story by Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, totally not coincidentally, both IPs belonging to LucasArts. And as sources for inspirations go, devs couldn't have picked better, at least back then. The game is set in 1949 and you play as Joe King, a pilot for hire and a proud owner of the Amazon Queen, an airplane that you use for work. It's interesting how those old movies always depicted their heroes to have excitement-filled jobs, right? I mean, a private plane owner working out of a remote location somewhere in a beautiful part of the world? Or an archaeologist/teacher turned adventurer treasure hunter? Or a private investigator with a dark past, heart of gold and near uncontrollable hankering for firewater? Or even an ex-cop turned bounty hunter with ties to both, law and the underworld, and an untouchable arch-enemy/nemesis that he will have to face and defeat at some point. These were the heroes of our youth. Well, whatever. Where were we? So you have a plane and are waiting in a hotel in Rio de Janeiro for your next customer, a famous actress, Miss Faye Russell. As you wait for her in a hotel room, you are ambushed by your competitor's goons and locked in said room. While you manage to free yourself with the help of a showgirl and your former lover Lola and get to the airport on time, this is just a setup for an adventure filled with all kinds of action. Stuff like crash landing in the middle of Amazon jungle, cooperating with an unexpected trader named Bob who lives among the indigenous to the jungle tribe, and saving Princess Azura from Florida, among others. You'll have your hands full of both adventure and fun, and it will hook you from the first joke. Flight of the Amazon Queen's graphics was made entirely in famous Amiga's graphics software Deluxe Paint, a brilliant little piece of programming marvel that I played with myself as a kid too, and I gotta tell you, it was borderline revolutionary at the time. It was like Photoshop of the late 80s, early 90s with a whole fully working frame-by-frame animation module too. which is a testament to how important at the time Amiga was for game development on many more systems than just itself. Flight of the Amazon Queen is a beautiful looking and great sounding title that's a treat for any and all adventure games fans. And given the fact that its puzzles are not overly difficult, but also not trivial either, it's an excellent pick for hardened genre aficionados and newbies alike. Fable is a perfect example of a median point-and-click adventure. Good, but not great. It takes everything that the genre is known for, it doesn't add anything unnecessary or extra, it doesn't force 3D in its presentation or many twists and turns in its story either, but the staple is so well covered, resulting in a very enjoyable and playable experience. Its story is quite interesting too, even if told mainly in the introduction and barely touched throughout the rest of the game. It puts you in the shoes of Quickthorpe, who is given a quest by his village's priest of finding of 4 mystical gemstones. They are said to have magical powers and be able to partly control the nature around them. The priest plans on destroying them, making the world fully habitable to the villagers again. Each gem has a guardian in the form of a different creature, and they must be defeated for it to be obtainable. As you go about your quest, you'll learn that the world was once kept in an iron grip by the ancient race of creatures from another world called Mecubar, and they caused catastrophic event as they were leaving the planet, all to destroy the humanity that they left behind. A dick move if you ask me. Now it's up to you to figure out what the gemstones are really used for and can they be a key to saving the world. As much as the plot may seem dark, heavy and gloom, especially taking place in the world that is in complete ruin, struggling to survive, the game is chock full of quirky British humor, and for the most part it's actually pretty fun to go through and experience. Interestingly enough, there's actually 2 separate releases of Fable with 2 different endings. The original, international releases ending is very dark and depressing, and proves that all of the work you've put in the game was in vain, and that everything was not really what it seemed. It was criticized by the audiences as being off-putting and not fitting to the rest of the gameplay, so the devs changed it for the North American release to not only be lighter, but also to provide a happy end in game's conclusion. It's hard to tell if that was the right choice, but it is what it is. The puzzles are for the most part inventory-based and pretty fun, hardly ever too difficult to leave you pondering about what to do. The sounds are pretty good too, especially the British narration that fits perfectly and highlights the humor contrast between the light-hearted gameplay and dark overarching story, and the graphics are pretty nice, well animated and in high resolution SVGA, adding a lot to the fun. So, if you're a fan of adventure games, this one's not to miss, even if it's definitely no one's favorite game in the genre. The Last Express is a real-time point-and-click adventure set in 1914, just before the outbreak of the World War. You play as American, Dr. Robert Cave, who receives an invitation from a friend to join him on the Orient Express. Without giving it a second thought, you accept and get on the train, and with style too. And I mean it. You're literally jumping on it from your motorcycle, escaping the authorities as a suspect in a murder you did not commit. Naturally, from the moment you accept to the moment you jump on the train, a little time has passed, but I'm simplifying it for the sake of this video. If that all wasn't enough, and your life wasn't full of odd happenings, when you finally get on the train, you find the body of a friend of yours, also killed. So, to escape the suspicion of 2 murders now, you decide to disguise yourself as the dead man. The logic behind this reasoning is totally escaping me, but whatever, it is what it is. And all that is just the beginning of a roller coaster of treachery, lies, political conspiracies, personal interest, romance and murder, all aboard the titular train. Even though The Last Express was not a commercial success upon its release, it gained highly positive reviews from both gamers and industry professionals alike, not in small part thanks to its non-linear story and real-time gameplay. While majority of the game is experienced from the first-person perspective, all of the cutscenes are in third-person view and are stylized like some of these very early and jumping between the frames animated movies of yore. The time keeps running constantly in The Last Express and in real time, albeit multiplied by a factor of 6. Many of the events in the game are scripted and run on a schedule too, so you have to keep track of the in-game time and their on-train locations to be able to witness them as they take place. The game features over 30 individual unique characters, all with their own artificial intelligence and agendas, so when talking to them, you always have to keep in mind that they're after their personal goals first and anything else later. So, unless you intervene and change what the particular person was about to do, either by having them do something else, by changing their minds, or just talking to them when they were planning on doing that thing, they will follow their own schedules. and each and seemingly small change in these may have a lasting impact on the rest of the game. This type of a branching design made The Last Express a really addictive title, though one that also ended up with over 800 pages long script for. There's 30 quote-unquote bad endings, 4 alternate neutral ones, and one that's considered to be the true good ending. The game may have not been a commercial success, but it's definitely worth not only your attention but also a full playthrough, especially that 1997 was the last year fully commercial professional adventure games were released for DOS, as it was slowly phasing off from Minds of Devs as the viable gaming platform. Adventure games, even B-listers, are an excellent pick to show off how DOS grew and matured as a gaming platform. There was clearly visible technological and storytelling progress in them, and they got better and better with each year until they reached their peak and then just kept the quality for the last couple of years. Also, there were so many point-and-clickers released on PC that I had quite a few titles to pick from, which is not something which can be said for very early and very late years for some other genres. What do you think of today's selection though? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.
Excuse me, monsieur, but